Conflict shows up whether we are ready or not. And in the workplace, it often shows up at the worst possible time. At its core, leadership reflects the integration of how we think, act, and live across our lives. And in the workplace, performance leadership is about aligning people, purpose, and processes to consistently achieve meaningful results. It emanates from within and manifests itself outward. And now, although this podcast focuses on the traditional workplace, remember we are all called to lead in some way, whether or not we have a formal leadership position. Welcome to Coaching Talks, folks. I'm Richard Fontenay, and in this episode, we'll explore how to manage disagreements constructively so that conflict becomes a driver of clarity and not confusion. Now, before we continue, take a moment to subscribe so you don't miss future episodes. And thank you for doing so. Now, here's the reality. Conflict is not the problem. Avoiding it or mishandling it is the problem. Workplaces are filled with different personalities, priorities, and pressures. And that combination naturally creates tension. But high-performing leaders understand something important. Conflict, when handled well, sharpens thinking and strengthens teams. Many of you know that I like to share 5 leadership strategies that you can apply every day. And today is no different. So here they are. First, create psychological safety. People need to feel safe to speak honestly about fear of backlash. If team members believe they will be judged or ignored, they will either withdraw or become defensive. And neither outcome is productive. And as a leader, your tone sets the environment. So stay calm, stay open, and invite input. Second, focus on the issue and not the person. Now, this sounds simple, but it is often where leaders struggle. When disagreement becomes personal, resolution becomes difficult. So keep the conversation anchored on facts and behaviors and outcomes. As well, separate praise from correction. There is a small distance from patting someone on the back to spanking on the bum. So keep the two separate. Praise in public, correct in private. It's about maintaining trust in the workplace. And by the way, when correcting, instead of saying, "You are always late," say, "We've missed 2 deadlines this week, and it's impacting the team." And that shift changes everything. Third, listen to understand and not to respond. Most people listen with the intent to reply. Effective leaders listen with the intent to learn. They ask clarifying questions. They reflect back on what they have heard. This not only improves understanding, but it also builds trust. Fourth, clarify expectations and agreements. Many conflicts arise from unclear roles and assumptions. Let's take a quote from my ebook, 8 Interlocking Building Blocks for Highly Successful Teams. The link is in the description below. Let's consider a broken play in football. Schultz's job is to protect the quarterback. The play is to throw the ball to the receiver. And something's not working. But Schultz is open. It's a broken play. Does Schultz say, "Don't throw the ball to me. I'm not a receiver. It's not my job"? Not likely. He will receive the ball and run with it, unlike a swift running receiver, but as an offensive defender. He will lumber down the field with every skill that he has. And Schultz knows the goal of the team is to win, and despite his role as an offensive defender, he can contribute to the goal without regard to his specific role. So what is this all about? Take time to define who is responsible for what, even when things don't go right. Confirm expectations and goals, and ensure everyone is aligned. Be aware of things going off the rails, just as in my sports analogy. Clarity reduces tension. Fifth, move toward resolution quickly. Unresolved conflict lingers. And when it lingers, it spreads. So address issues early on. Be direct, but be respectful. Resolution does not mean everyone agrees. It means everyone understands the path forward. Let me bring this to life with a workplace story. In my coaching career, I have experienced significant tension in many workplaces. For example, a department manager noticed growing tension between two team members. Meetings were becoming unproductive, and communication had broken down. Instead of ignoring the situation, I worked with the manager to bring both individuals together. Now, the manager set clear ground rules, respectful communications, no interruptions, and each person had the opportunity to share their perspective. What emerged was not a personality conflict. It was a misunderstanding over responsibilities. And once clarified, the tension eased. Productivity improved. And that is the power of structured conversations. Here's another example. A project team consistently missed deadlines. Frustration was building. Rather than assigning blame, the leader led a review session. What are we trying to achieve, he said. What is getting in our way? And through open discussions, the team identified overlapping tasks and unclear priorities. Adjustments were made, and deadlines were met. Conflict served as a catalyst for improvement. Now let's talk about your role as a leader. Your responsibility is not to eliminate conflict. Your responsibility is to guide it, to create an environment which disagreement leads to better decisions. That requires self-awareness. And how do you respond under pressure? Do you become defensive? Do you avoid difficult conversations? Or do you lean in with the curiosity for clarity? Performance leadership always begins within, and because you show up determines how others respond. Let me give you a practical approach you can use immediately. When conflict arises, follow this simple sequence. Pause before reacting and assess the situation. Engage in conversation and ask questions. Listen actively and acknowledge perspectives. Define the issue clearly and collaborate on solutions. And then agree on the next steps and then follow up. Consistency builds credibility. Now, let's connect this to the results. When conflict is managed well, teams become stronger, and communication improves, and trust increases, and ultimately, performance rises. But when conflict is ignored, the opposite happens. Morale declines, productivity drops, turnover increases, and the cost becomes real. And that is why All of this matters. And let's bring this closer to your day-to-day work. Think about your last disagreement. What went well? What could you have handled differently? And what will you do next time? Now, these are questions that develop leadership capacity, because leadership is not built in theory. It is built in practice. One conversation at a time, one decision at a time, and one response at a time. Remember, you don't need to have all the answers, but you do need to create the space for answers to emerge. And that is leadership. So this week, I challenge you to do one thing. Address one unresolved conflict, approach it with clarity, respect, intention, and then notice what happens. Because when leaders handle conflict well, everything improves. Team aligns, work flows, and results follow. I also challenge you to bring this podcast into your next conversation, meeting, or coaching moment. Remember, leadership is practiced one interaction at a time, and sustainable excellence is built in rhythms and not marathons. I'm Richard Fontenay, signing off. And if this conversation resonated with you, please subscribe, like, and refer to a friend. And thank you for doing so. Stay tuned for our next coaching talks, where we explore problem solving and decision making, and focus on structured approaches to complex issues. I don't think you want to miss that one. See you then. Bye for now.